Once upon a time, when I was a wee lad, I would often go to the library to read books. It'd start off as comics and picture books, and an occasional adventure action book. Then it led to animal books, I guess. Why? Not too sure. Maybe it's because I liked Nat Geo Wild as a kid, and there were some narrative-based animal documentaries that we were shown, and also books promised adventures and action. So I find myself a book series by this little-known author named Aaron Hunter. That book series was the Seeker book series. That's right. I looked at a book about bears and read them. Why? I could not tell you why, but after reading those books, I then picked up another series by this Aaron Hunter. That's right, it's a book about cats. Why? Again, I don't know. It had the word warriors in it, and my pea brain at the time equated that to action, which was not an incorrect assumption. Okay, before I ramble on too much, let's discuss the main point of this. What is Warriors? It's a very generic name book series that became its own insane massive franchise about cats in the wild. Except these cats had their own gangs. Originally, it was only meant to be a six-book series that told a pretty classic but decently structured story of the protagonists saving their little world by leading an army to defeat the evil Big Bad's army. Of course, all this done with cats. It was a popular series that was so popular that it spawned a sequel, then another, and another, a load of supplementary material in between, the story about bears, another series, and another bear story featuring the same bears, another cat series, a lot of short stories, novellas, some graphic novels, two series with dogs, which felt a bit obvious. It's a bit surprising to hear that it took three whole series of the main cat story to be finished before they decided to move on to dogs. Book about pandas, book about the African savanna, which also had sequels, and a new series of cats coming out sometime this year or the next, I think. Needless to say, this author kind of found their niche in the genre of juvenile fiction. So, how does someone write about animal books for so long and so quickly? Granted, they're only 60 to 70,000 words mostly, but still, every few months a single book is a very quick upturn. Well, you see, the secret to that is that they don't. You see, Aaron Hunter is not a real person. It is a pen name used by multiple different authors all working together, which led to some issues with continuity that went way out of hand. But more onto that stuff in the future, maybe if I ever get to there. Let's just see how this first video goes before I drive myself into further insanity. Barely into the Fate series as is, and I've also done a Star Wars stuff. Anyways, back to a simpler time of 2003. Book company HarperCollins had one of their employees, Victoria Holmes, tasked to write a story about cats. Victoria, not sure what to do, decided to get the help of one Kate Carey, a cat lover. There are more details to this story, but they don't occur until later on after this first book is published, so I'll worry about that later. The idea of using a pseudonym, Aaron Hunter, was because they thought that if they had two authors writing the same book, readers could have trust issues when trying to pick the book, or having trouble finding it under the two different names. Thus, Aaron Hunter's legacy began. As I said before, this book spawned an entire six-book series and several sequels, meaning it became really popular, and believe it or not, the story about the lives of cats awakened some things in some people. By that, I mean some people use this as a jumping off point to into furries, and honestly, I can definitely see it, and I'm sort of shocked of how I managed to avoid it. Jokes aside, this series really did hit home for a lot of people. Obviously, the inspiration of good over evil and overcoming difficulties to be something great is awe-inspiring and everything, but there's also many points of tribalism, race, religion that this book series will delve into. And also, this was a discovery point for many people part of the LGBTQ community. It did a lot of good and helped a lot of people, even if some of its points weren't the best delivered. Still, it's a juvenile book series, so it's kind of hard to do it perfectly with those parameters installed. There's even a claymation series on YouTube that recreated multiple of these book series by Pink Bunny Girl 43, which is a bit like a puppet show reenactment with full voice acting and everything. There's been multiple fan games, fan animated adaptations of the books, and an official movie deal that was signed years ago and seems to be in some sort of development hell. It's a popular series for good reason, and at least while writing the script and basing everything off my memories, first six books were pretty damn good. Now, I'm about to ruin those nostalgia glasses by reading through them myself right now. Reading and reviewing it in 2025. How will it hold up? Will it be good? Or will these rose tinted glasses fade? Only time will tell, so let's start the adventure of a bunch of cats fighting each other over a lump of dirt somewhere in the UK. That's right, it's in the UK, the most grim, dark setting of them all. Originally, this book series was called Warriors, but after multiple book series being spawned off it, subtitles had to come along, and this first series was thus dubbed Prophecies Begin, as it is the launchpad for the rest of the series. So, let's have this prophecy begin. By the way, they made a full graphic novel of the series of these books back in 2024, which currently have two release volumes and a third volume coming up September 30th. Each volume covers around two books, so the third volume should finish this entire series. I only found out about this after finishing the main part of the script, so I'm not going to talk about it too much until the very end of it. I will add in some pictures from the nice artwork over the story as I tell it, but any extra details you want to be told, a further breakdown of the comics itself, I'll talk about at the end of this video. Okay, back to me reading the book. Open up the book, we get a glossary of names and characters and brief descriptions of their appearance and allegiance. Pretty standard in a lot of fantasy series, especially with those with multiple different characters. But even reading through this glossary, we can see a few uses of universal lingo already, which are going to continue on for the rest of this book series. Example for in universal lingo is instead of using the word for months, they use the word for moons because that's how they tell time. Later on, you'll see whenever people need to measure distance or length of something, they'll use animal-based lengths, like two fox lengths away or whatever. They'll call humans two legs, cars monsters, so on and so forth. Also, reading through the story may spoil a couple of things as characters described in the glossary become plot relevant later on into the story, either as twists or shocks. Also, one of the characters in the glossary is called an orange cat and is called very handsome. Wonder who the main character of the story is. Next, we see a map of the world. Again, pretty common for stories about their own fictional world, seen in plenty of fantasy books. We begin with the prologue, and we're in the middle of a fight. A group of cats under the name ThunderClan are defending a piece of rocky land from another clan called RiverClan, who emerge from the river. Fighting is focused on a big cat named Tigerclaw, who is currently outnumbered, but still throwing out his large frame against the intruders. A few other names are mentioned, namely a River Clan cat named Oakheart and another Thunder Clan cat who seems to be the leader of the Thundercats fighting, called Redtail. Based on early glossary cats, he's the clan's second in command, the deputy. ThunderClan is outnumbered, and Redtail orders a retreat, which Tigerclaw does do so, but is none too keen on. He's real angry as he runs away. After the fight, ThunderClan cats are quite literally licking their wounds, and the team medic, a medicine cat named Spotted Leaf. By the way, I was debating on whether or not I should mention all descriptions of every cat. Then I realized I would go even madder than I am right now if I did, so I'll just mention any physical descriptions if needed. Put up some pictures for easier understanding. Anyways, the ThunderClan leader Bluestar gets updated on the state of the fighters, and we're introduced to more universal jargon. Green leaf means summer, new leaf is spring, and we're told right now it's around early spring, and that the clan just suffered its first loss since Bluestar came to power. And they also lack the babies for this year. That last part will make more sense as we go on. Concern, he asks Spotted Leaf for advice from StarClan, which is the cat's religion, so it has some spiritual/religious connections. At that very moment, from a shooting star, Spotted Leaf gets a message and says that fire will save the clan. Prophecy delivered, the prologue is concluded, and it's time to meet our prophecy of fire. We'll move on to the future, a different location and time. Our main character, Rusty, an orange furred cat who's very handsome, by the way, has a vivid dream of hunting a mouse in the side of forest. Waking up from the dream, he realizes he's back in his owner's home in bed in a regular human house. It's night now, and he ate some cat food, which was described as tasteless compared to his woods fever dream. Now, I don't think I need to tell you that this dream was given to him by StarClan or something like that, so that he can go and complete the prophecy. Anyways, Rusty is curious and goes out venturing into the forest, though his friend Smudge mentions how there are very big scary cats outside. Also the mention of another cat being changed one day after they visited the vet. Ignoring it, proceeds to venture into the forest, almost catching a mouse before his collar rings too loudly. Unfailed, Rusty then realized that he was being followed. One of the wild cats attacks him, and after a quick tussle, the other guy stops fighting and explains that he was Greypaw, princess of 6 months or moons old, similar to that of Rusty. Greypaw then explains some lore about the ThunderClan and how he's patrolling, though they get along rather well before the adults come along. Enter Bluestar and another cat named Lionheart. They give Rusty a reality check of how tough the forest can be and that life is far easier in Tulaland. Both are impressed by Rusty's potential and that he was still a Tom, which meant that his balls are intact. After a controversial move, he's a house cat and they're wildcats.
Racism.
Rusty is then given a day to choose between joining the clan or continuing on living with the humans. It should be mentioned how romanticized the world of wildcats were. Cat food was bland, the tap water was metallic tasting. It seemed that life in the wild was a lot more spicier than it was indoors. Go ahead, go out and touch some grass, nerd. Making a choice to go, he says his goodbyes to his buddy Smudge and heads into the forest, where he's greeted by Lionheart and another dude named Whitestorm. They lead Rusty into the forest and into the main base of the clan. They show him around a bit, explain the motto of the clan, clan comes first, yada yada yada. A lot of stuff for him to take in. Also, we can already see a contrast between how people treat our little buddy here. Whitestorm is nice and gentle, patient, while Lionheart seems to only be doing this because he was told to. Bluestar is happy that he's here, affirming of the prophecy that only she and the Medicine currently knew of. She then introduces him to the rest of the clan. As you could guess, the result is
Racism.
one cat named Longtail proceeds to spew out enough discrimination that you would think you were reading a transcript of a grifter podcast. Lionheart then goads Rusty into violence, and Rusty jumps the man. In the fight, Rusty loses his collar, and Rusty Mike Tyson's Longtail. The ear biting, not the other stuff that Mike Tyson's known for. Blue Star gets in the middle of it and calls the collar ripping as a sign that Rusty belongs in the wild. And now Rusty was dubbed with a new clan name named Firepaw. I wonder who the chosen one would be for the prophecy of fire. After his inauguration, Graypaw introduces him to a load of other cats. Spotted Leaf the medicine cat, Darkstripe, who doesn't like Firepaw. Now, as a quick aside, and some spoilers, so skip to this point in the video if you don't want to be told this, but it's a 22-year-old children's book about cats. Probably want to listen to this, I imagine. Anyways, remember how I said that the book spawned off multiple series and was written by multiple different authors? Well, due to all these series and different writers, certain inconsistencies began to appear. Here in this first book, Spotted Leaf is described as young. Darkstripe is implied to be an older veteran member of the society, at least old enough to teach Longtail, who himself is already a full-fledged warrior. So the book seems to imply that Darkstripe is older than Spotted Leaf. But if you were to dive deeper into the series, Spotted Leaf will be around 4.5 human years old. Why am I mentioning this? Because she and Firepaw build a relationship despite the massive age gap between the two. Even in cat years, which the series has a conversion table for, you can check it out, the age gap is between a preteen and an adult in their 30s. So why is this weird grooming relationship introduced? Well, it's introduced accidentally. Again, Graypaw, who's the same age as Firepaw, mentioned before how Spotted Leaf was young and pretty, meaning it's likely that she's meant to only be a little bit older than the two of them, perhaps by a few months, maybe a year at most. Like it's implied that she's new to her job, but she's a natural at it. But due to the authors wanting to expand on this universe, it built in this problematic change to the canon which made Spotted Leaf way older than intended, as it was revealed that Redtail, the veteran deputy, was her birth brother. So canonically, she's older than she is, but it's also canonical that she's a lot younger than what the canon says she is. Again, inconsistencies, but they don't really apply in this first book, so let's keep going. This welcoming party turns sour as another apprentice runs over. Ravenpaw, tired and covered in dust and blood, he declared that Redtail, the deputy mentioned earlier, was killed. The River Clan's deputy, Oakhart, killed him, and then Tigerclaw killed Oakhart. But with this death, Firepaw gets introduced to Star Clan lore and rituals for those who pass. Redtail's friends hold vigil for him. It is mentioned how one of the other apprentices, Dustpaw, was actually Redtail's apprentice during this time, and now he needed a new one. All the while Firepaw is being explained lore, Spiderleaf tends to Ravenpaw, using the cobwebs as bandages for his wounds. Again, Spiderleaf was described as a pretty tortoiseshell cat from the viewpoint of Firepaw. Tigerclaw looms over Ravenpaw, described as big and scary, not really happy with Ravenpaw's injured state. Spiderleaf seems rather playful and nonchalant, despite Tigerclaw trying to intimidate her. She's able to drive him off, and Ravenpaw reveals to others that he was trying to play dead, try and get away from Tigerclaw. It'll make more sense why he did so soon, but meanwhile, Tigerclaw notices Firepaw as he leaves. Firepaw gets toured around the warrior quarters, which are all the cats of fighting age, In the elders area, who are retired, then Firepaw eats his first mouse. At the same time, Blue Star announces a new deputy, Lion. Fireclaw was mentioned over and over again about being very hungry for the position. I wonder what will come from this. Another apprentice is introduced, Sandpaw, and she, like the others, is racist to Firepaw.
Racism.
After a day of introduction, Firepaw goes around to start training. He explores the place, part of their territory intersects a road, cars are referred to as monsters by the cats, where they've been fighting River Clan. Firepaw was allowed to smell the scent of River Clan. Most are cats, a lot of smelling and recognizing each other by scents. Then he's also told about the other two clans, Wind Clan and Shadow Clan. I wonder which will be the evil clan. Could it be Wind Clan, or could it be the cats who live in the dark shadows? Hmm. It's fun to point out the obvious villains in a children's book. They're told that during the full month, all four clans peacefully meet up and hang around, and talk under the protection of Stone Clan. Firepaw asks why not have all four clans just work together. Fireclaw, also a racist, says that's stupid, though honestly, it's really not. A united group of cats under one force feels like a much better system than four fragmented clans that continuously try and kill each other. But whatever, it's tradition to have people hate each other, I guess. Some more traveling around the borders, introduction to large trucks and carts are used for logging, that they head back. Surprisingly, this is actually a seed planted for a series in the future. Well, whether or not we get to that, we'll see. So I'll leave it there. The next day, Firepaw is taught how to hunt. Lionheart and Fireclaw are teaching. Fireclaw is mean to everyone and racist to Firepaw.
Racism.
Firepaw is honestly really good and naturally winds up successfully getting a kill as his journey as a clan member continues. Months pass and now it's summer. Firepaw is doing well, receiving more permissions and some more important jobs. While he's hunting, some cat facts are told to us as Firepaw sees a Shadow Clan cat as well as a fox. Nothing special yet until later that day when a Shadow Clan cat attacks him in ThunderClan territory. She old, hungry, tired, which made her mean and dangerous. So Firepaw beats up the old crippled cat. But then Firepaw realized that he was beating up an old and sick woman, and guilt kind of hit him then. The old lady, much like most old people, was sick of life, and was more than willing to just die right then and there. Thankfully, having a main character brutally murder an old woman is not a great look for a children's book, so Firepaw doesn't do so. Instead, he feeds her a rabbit that he catches. He also eats a bit of himself, which is illegal,
That's fucking illegal.
because he cannot eat first, the others must. Which lands him into a bit of trouble when Lionheart finds him, along with Blue Star and several other cats, plus old buddy Greypaw. At least Firepaw successfully captured a prisoner, an old lady named Yellowfang, former medicine cat of Shadow Clan. For some reason, she left and was now clanless. And so she has a bit of a reputation. A former warrior turned medicine cat, she is quite well known even by the younger generation of cats like Greypaw. They then head back to their clan base, and Yellowfang becomes their prisoner. Tiger Claw wants her dead, but Blue Star thinks that she's useful. Then an announcement was made. It was revealed that the reason why Blue Star and everyone else was all grouped together to converge on Firepaw and Yellowfang was due to the Shadow Clan apparently driving out all of Wind Clan from their territory and taking over it. Change in the harmony of clans is brewing. With the need of more hands, Firepaw is now apprentice of Blue Star and Tiger Claw angry. But Firepaw also needs to take care of Yellowfang now as punishment, so he needs to feed her and clean her. Longtail comes up and says racist stuff to Firepaw.
Racism.
As the usual, Firepaw then goes to take care of Yellowfang, who is also very racist to him. Offhandedly, he mentions his parents' name as the hard K word for kitty pet. While it's not important right now, just know that his dad, Jake, is wild. He's been inserted in so much lore and story in the future that really didn't need to be known, in fact, to the point where it became kind of ridiculous. You just need to know that Jake has a huge body count, man. Anyways, back to the racism that Firepaw has to deal with. He stands up for himself and wins the approval of Yellowfang, who lets him treat her. Interacting with Spotterleaf properly for the first time, Firepaw gets Yellowfang some medicine, while Tireclaw glares at him while Yellowfang makes his life hell for funsies. A few days later, Firepaw gets into a bit of a rhythm. Not that it stops Dustpaw and Sandpaw from throwing more kitty pet slurs at him, but still Firepaw takes care of Yellowfang. A few babies, called kits, run into Yellowfang and she gets unnaturally angry at them. Firepaw asks if she had kids or not, and then she gets angry yelling in reply, looking very troubled. Very interesting. Firepaw goes to get Mouse Dung to deal with Yellowfang's ticks, and gets to see Spotted Leaf again. Spotted Leaf seems to be preparing herbs for war. Firepaw feels funny when looking at her. Anyways, after dealing with the ticks, he goes to wash up and then does some hunting with his friends Greypaw and Ravenpaw. Finally, during the fall season, Firepaw has won the respect of Yellowfang. Somewhat and was free from having to be her main caretaker and was now off to train with his friend. At this point, both of his main buddies, Ravenpaw and Greypaw, have their clear character types. Greypaw likes jokes, and Ravenpaw is very jumpy and unsure of himself. Anyways, the first test back is guess what? Yes, you guessed it. More hunting. He meets with his old friend Smudge while he's doing so, got his balls cut off. After exchanging some friendlies, he heads back. Ravenpaw turns out to have killed an adder snake, and Tireclaw tells Blue Star of Firepaw's meeting. After having to convince Blue Star that he's a loyal hoe, he and his friends then get to go to the Full Moon Clan's meeting. Anyways, they go to the meeting, and the other leaders are introduced. Broken Star and Crooked Star for Shadow and River Clan respectively. At the same time, Wind Clan and Tall Star are missing. Seems the rumors are true. Other cats are talking and intermingling. During this meeting, lore of tigers, lions, and leopards and such are revealed as great ancestors. Strangely though, it's noticed how they know of tigers, lions, and leopards. Uh, Cat spiritual magic malarkey. Strangely though, it's noticed that some of the Shadow Clan princesses are extremely young looking. Also, Ravenpaw accidentally reveals that Redtail killed Oakheart and not Tigerclaw. How strange. Broken Star then announces that they had driven out all of Wind Clan and will use the territory of the other clans for hunting as River Clan has already capitulated. Blue Star hasn't done so yet, but then Broken Star mentions Yellowfang and how she's slain kits before, which makes everybody nervous as they already know she's bad with children. Firepaw, not believing it, rushes back home first trying to warn Yellowfang of potential danger. Yellowfang, while appreciative of the gesture, refuses to budge as she will not run. Blue Star doesn't actually want to hurt her, thankfully, though Tigerclaw and Darkstripe really do. Firepaw and friends then go with Blue Star and Tigerclaw to the Moonstone, a religious underground cave that links them together just close to StarClan when they go and dream. Before the journey, Firepaw receives a strange dream of Shadow Clan cats attacking him and his clan while his friends run around. Anyways, the day comes and they travel through Shadow Clan land to reach the Moonstar. Arriving at the Moonstone, they then go underground and see a glowing rock. Tireclaw is scared, and Bluestar has Firepaw enter in with her. After getting her message, Bluestar tells the group that they must run home immediately. On their way back, they pass by a farm with a cat named Barley, who warns them about some dogs. Tireclaw doesn't like him, but then they get attacked by rats. They fend them off with Barley's help, but Bluestar dies. Thankfully, as cat leader, she has the gift of 9 lives, so she's still alive. Now, she explained she still had 4 more remaining lives. Here I have to say a quick aside. 9 lives sound like a lot, but you'll quickly see just how quickly these things get spent in these stories. Like, you may as well not have 9 lives. So many other cats outlive you if you wind up having 9 lives because it's such a quick and easy plot device to get rid of one to build up tension and drama in one of these stories. Anyways, as they make it back in time, as Shadow Clan has made a full-blown invasion. I don't know if that dream was necessary, as if she just stayed there, this would have happened either way, but we need to be introduced to the farmhouse in Barley and also StarClan itself. Whatever. Elder is killed while trying to protect the kids from the Shadow Clan deputy Blackfoot, though Yellowfang is able to drive him off, as do the rest of the Thunder Clan cats with the Shadow Clan one. Lionheart also dies in this skirmish. Off camera, of course, which means a new deputy, and this time, Tigerclaw gets the go-ahead. Though while injuries were being treated, he seems strangely focused on Ravenpaw. As Tigerclaw gets promoted and congratulated, Ravenpaw is horrified and accidentally revealed to Firepaw that Tigerclaw killed Redtail, which confirms the clues that were left earlier. Ravenpaw, realizing the mistake he made, is all doom and gloom now, but the next day at least, Yellowfang is promoted to clan member. Firepaw, going to Yellowfang, is told of how Brokenstar was very persuasive and his right-hand man was just Big Dumb Muscle. If you're wondering who the bad guys in the story at this point would be, I would be shocked. It's a children's book, so you kinda know some things are meant to be obvious. Anyways, Firepaw goes to get some garlic to deal with the rat bites from earlier, but overhears Tigerclaw talking to Darkstripe. He calls Ravenpaw a traitor, lying about how Ravenpaw snuck off to talk to Shadow Clan and seems to want to get rid of him. Firepaw then goes to Spotted Leaf for treatment for an injured and grieving Greypaw, who was very quiet for a while now. Here, Spotted Leaf told Firepaw of the prophecy of how fire will save the clan. And the day ends. You would think Firepaw would have a bit more urgency with Ravenpaw's life on the line, but to be fair, Blue Star is not exactly in a healthy state right now after dying once and then having to fight another battle. The next day, Blue Star and Firepaw train together, and he forgets to tell her about the important things. He like me for real, for real. Some more time passes, and Ravenpaw comes back and successfully catches prey he took from Shadow Clan territory. A task given to him by Tiger Claw. Firepaw points out how bad this is, and Ravenpaw runs to his room. Firepaw then follows him and reveals to him that Tiger Claw convinced others that Ravenpaw was working with Shadow Clan, and then Ravenpaw finally reveals the truth. Tiger Claw ordered Ravenpaw to leave the battlefield after the victory, but Ravenpaw stuck around and saw him murder Redtail. Firepaw now needed to figure out how to convince Bluestar and the others how the second in command was actually evil this whole time. Unfortunately, Firepaw's ADHD seems to hit him again, as once more he was alone with Bluestar, forgot to tell her everything. Don't worry though, there's another thing to worry about for now. Frostfur, cat raising children, just had them stolen. Also, Spotted Leaf is dead. Also, Thunderstorm is brewing. The last act of this book seems pretty rushed as there's not a lot of pages left and it's a lot of stuff they need to fill and cover first. Also, Yellowfang is gone. Fingers are quickly pointed and Blue Star orders Firepaw to find Yellowfang to get some answers and bring her back. As Yellowfang actually likes him and he probably won't kill her like the others. Firepaw says goodbye to Spotted which, another side tangent, Firepaw and Spotted at least in the future books, are mentioned to have liked each other a whole lot. But again, timeline and evidence-wise, preteen and an adult in their 30s, which is bad. Furthermore, I have mentioned every single interaction between the two in this book, and as you can see, it's extremely minimal. There is literally one moment where they're alone, and even then, there was an unconscious gray paw next to them. I did sometimes omit the fact that whenever they did interact, Firepaw in the book would describe her as sweet-smelling or pretty or whatever, and there's a couple of instances where they nuzzled a bit here and there when she was handing him medicine. Firepaw nuzzles Greypaw and Ravenpaw more than he did with her. It's wild, I know. Into the wild. But this is the only book where they ever actually get to interact with each other. Later on, it's mentioned by other cats how close they were together. While it's canonical that they barely talked, it was also canon that they hung out, knew each other very well. So why the hell does this weird non-existent love subplot even exist? Well, it was explained that Kate originally wanted to have a love drama between the two, as medicine cats aren't fall in love and have children, as Yellowfang mentioned in the past, which could have been a very interesting game to play over the 6 books. But Victoria, the other main author for this book, didn't really feel confident about writing the subplot of forbidden love. So they fridged Spotted Leaf to make Firepaw more driven in the story. And that's why there's so much implied development despite not actually having any. Now back to the story. Tigerclaw's branding of Ravenpaw as a traitor began to spread amongst the other cats. Frostfur, the mother of her missing kids, was more than willing to believe that now, and now that as the storm was fully set in, Firepaw was to help Greypaw drag Ravenpaw away from the camp. Tigerclaw attempts to stop him, but Bluestar gives him the hallway pass. On the way out to free Ravenpaw, Firepaw explains to Greypaw the whole Tiger Clan situation. Again, this sequence and scene is a bit interesting because Firepaw could have voiced his concerns to Bluestar a few times now. He just happened to forget. To be fair, while whether his word coupled with Ravenpaw's would be enough to convince Bluestar is questionable, as it is a respected clan member that he's accusing. However, Firepaw has proof of at least one of Tiger's lies, with his claim that Ravenpaw snuck off and talked with Shadow Clan. As Bluestar was with them the entire time, she would have known that it was such a blatant lie, which is good evidence for her to become suspicious and wonder why he wants to get rid of Ravenpaw so bad, which then proceeds to lend more credence to the claim of traitor and killer of Redtail. This detective mystery route, however, isn't taken, instead the easier option is taken of writing how Ravenpaw must escape and Firepaw needs to be able to deal with Tigerclaw himself instead of playing Ace Attorney the cat version. This option gave the writers a clear path to forge ahead with plenty of toys to play with along the way. Still, much like the Spotted Leaf love story that never became a thing, could have gone a different route and probably could have made it more complicated if not interesting. Still, it's a children's book, so going straight forward and simple isn't a bad thing to do. Ah, well, anyways, they got 6 books to write about this anyways, so let's continue. At this point, lots of other people think Ravenpaw is a traitor now, and now, so Ravenpaw runs to the farm where Barley is. With their friend no longer being in immediate danger, Firepaw and Greypaw needed to go grab Yellowfang and hopefully the kidnapped children before the storm ends. Unfortunately, that means that they also had to go into Shadow Clan territory in a storm. But at least they did find Yellowfang. Better news is, she wasn't the culprit, instead trying to save them. She also reveals to them that Broken Star is making the young fight as warriors way too early and has gotten kids killed and blamed Yellowfang for it, hence her banishment. It also seemed that she was hiding a reason why she never tried to convince her former clan of her innocence, saying how Broken Star's dad and former leader Ragged Star was just too well respected and Broken Star received nepotism from it. So, how do two young recruits and an old injured medic sneak into the heart of the enemy territory? Well, thankfully, Broken Star made some enemies with his tyrannical reign. All of the old were forced to fend for themselves, and they had to live in the outskirts of the main base. Also, there happened to be a ThunderClan patrol near them, and Firepaw hoped he could roll a high enough persuasion check to convince them. The apprentices split from Yellowfang to complete their objectives. Thankfully, Blue Star assumed that Firepaw needed some help, so she sent White Storm and a group to patrol the area. Along with White Storm, Darkstripe was there along with a few other cats that are also named, but they don't really do much in this book, so I'll mention their names if they actually do something. White Storm, as shown early in the book, liked Firepaw enough and followed. They meet back up with Yellowfang, who brought her friends. Well, temporary allies at least. More information was revealed of how Broken Star has gotten many of the old, young, and sick killed while surrounding himself with an elite group and ruling with fear. As the group of cats discussed the change of Shadow Clan from Ragged Star to Broken Star, Ilfan seems extremely sad whenever they mention the former leader, almost like she loved him. The group decided to have Yellowfang follow the Shadow Clan cats as a prisoner to drive Broken Star out of hiding, then they ambush and take back the kits. As they approach the base, they realize just how bad ShadowClan is to their own people, as there are folks forced to scavenge for rotten food. Ambush worked a treat as they got the jump on the ShadowClan warriors. Firepaw then deals with Spotterleaf's killer, Clawface. No wonder he's an evil henchman. Look at his name. Tiny little Firepaw proceeds to manhandle the bigger cat and almost kills him in a rage before White Storm manages to stop. ShadowClan cats very quickly run after. This big final fight lasts barely over 400 words. It's not even a page worth of text. Firepaw's fights with Yellowfang and Longtail were much longer than this. Hell, even Greypaw's skirmish with Firepaw in the beginning was longer than this. So it's very clearly, rereading this as an adult, that Kate either really was rushed to finish this book, or she just got tired of running cat combat, or that they were rapidly approaching a word limit that this book set out. Anyways, Yellowfang came out and dragged Broken Star. Out of anger, Broken Star declares how he killed Ragged Star, and Yellowfang is devastated. Wonder why? Using this opportunity to grief, Broken Star then overpowers her and reveals that he also killed the children that caused Yellowfang to be banished. Firepaw then jumps in before he can kill her and drives him off. With the main Broken Star group gone and other Shadow Clan members were now free. And if it sounds like I'm making things a little bit anticlimactic, all of this happens rapid fire the next 2 pages. One of the cats literally just goes, Broken Star is gone. We are free now. And that's it. ThunderClan gets back their stolen kids. Yellowfang decides to follow ThunderClan back. Month of peace is made between ThunderClan and ShadowClan, so ShadowClan can collect themselves. Yellowfang is proved innocent and fully welcomed back into the clan while Tireclaw continues to try and stir trouble. Firepaw tells him in front of everyone that Ravenpaw was dead, and Tireclaw feigns sadness. With this quest complete, Greypaw and Firepaw become full-fledged warriors. And with that, the book is concluded. Firepaw, now called Fireheart, was ready to become a warrior and tell his leader, Blue Star, everything that transpired. Well, I guess that happens later, as I think they literally ran out of pages because they ended the book into the wild. Adventures just stop here and have to continue the next book. And overall review of this book. There were obviously large parts that I missed, as I had to give the broad strokes to the story. I missed out on a few of the little things that made the bulk of the story. Let me start off with some good and talk about some bad. Even with my summary, you can see a decent amount of world building from religion to how each clan culture works and how the clans seem to have some sort of past history with one another. Though the bad thing about all this inference with massive amounts of lore is that perhaps it caused a lot of inconsistencies. My God, so many side stories and materials came from this. And well, the kids gobbled it up. Hell, I gobbled it up. To be fair, some of the side stories were good. but also some of it were bad. When it comes to main characters, they were enjoyable. Firepaw is likable and shows her natural maturity over in the universe as months pass. Obviously, there were things like the romance angle of Spotted Leak that didn't work out, even though I think the trope of forbidden love is such a good subplot to play around with, especially if you're making a series that's 6 books long. You could have created so many problems that Firepaw had to deal with and have to overcome, and you could have had plenty of cute moments between the two that it would have made readers very happy and adore them. Could have fleshed a lot of characters out by having these characters have these close relationships as well. However, again, it can be complicated to write, and clearly they didn't really want to head into that complicated route, so instead they just simply killed her off and went with the easy path of fight the bad guy who took your girl away from them. Another thing with this book and this entire series, the characters that Kate wrote are fun and entertaining. He knows how to write fun interactions and dialogue between characters. Another thing that I didn't mention throughout my summary really in too much detail was that in this book series, along with every other book series that with the name Aaron Hunter creates, involves a lot of food, like animals hunting and eating food, which makes sense because in real life, animals do a lot of hunting and eating. Finding food and eating it is kind of a selling point for these kind of stories, as many books featuring animals, hell, many books in fantasy and fiction in general have characters feature food in so much dialogue. Because describing food and eating the food and their feelings while eating it and the feelings before eating it is just a lot of writing that you can fill a page with that is very fun and allows the reader to have an imagination of how good or bad the plate in front of the character is. The reason why Game of Thrones was able to launch its own cookbook and why butterbeer is a selling point at Universal Orlando. Writing about food is an excellent way to show the wonderfulness or dreadfulness of a situation. It's a natural issue that everyone has to encounter. People get hungry and people need to eat. And unlike a movie or show in which plate of food is there for just about 3 frames, as you know the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. You can spend 1,000 words describing a lunch, and it makes natural sense. While if you were to film it, it would just be a quick shot of a sandwich. This book also makes the process of them finding food and eating food fun and engaging. Hunting is fun and eating seems joyous. Combat was interesting, as it was pretty good for the most part, from the beginning skirmish of the prologue. The Firepod doing combat training was Blue Star. However, again, as I mentioned before, final big fight against a group of villains was 400-ish words long. That's not a lot of detail for the big final fight against the bad guy's main army. It's a real shame that the book was rushed to end. Maybe it was a crunch time thing, or maybe they just couldn't get past the 65,000 word mark. Again, something I mentioned out the story that I felt like was a bit of a negative was that a lot of these issues could have been tackled differently in the story had Firepaw just told Booster everything he discovered. While Firepaw doesn't know Booster knows of the Fire will save the clan prophecy, we know that Bluestar at least trusts him, and Firepaw knows that at least she trusts him a bit to have him be her main apprentice. Of course, as the authors, they could have easily just said that Bluestar just wouldn't have believed him and then thrown away that plot point entirely. And there was a level of acceptance that you can take because, yes, Tarkclaw is the second in command. Yes, Firepaw is new. Of course, Blue Star was going to go with the second in command over the new guy. Still, it just felt like the authors really didn't want to go through the who to trust game plan. So this book just simply found reasons for Firepaw to not have time to tell. One of these things that isn't really good, isn't really bad, just kind of thing that happens throughout this book is so many cats die and like so many more cats are going to die. It's insane how many people are killed off screen or are just named and just to die in the same sentence. It's ridiculous, especially considering how much more content is later farmed from these dead characters by explaining their past and history. Death is a tool that is used often by Kate and Victoria, and will further be used even more with the future authors in these books series under the pen name of Aaron Hunter. It's stupid, but also fun, but also mostly insane with how quickly and often people just die in these stories. Another small negative that isn't really an issue as a book, but now I remember being prevalent throughout future series, so spoilers, skip this part if you really don't want to be spoiled about this part. One of the major issues I find in the story is that a lot of bad guys just get away with stuff. Like so many characters introduced later or are already seen to have done terrible things, just get away with it. I won't go into detail with who, and how and why, it will become self-explanatory as it becomes more relevant in the future. Obviously, characters like Broken Star and Tiger Claw gets passes as clear they're going to be future big bad problems. Broken Star gets to escape and Tiger Claw gets to become second in command, because they will reappear and get the comeuppance later on in their plot. We're going to start telling Firepot that this isn't over before disappearing to the darkness, and Tigerclaw looming in as a evil second in command, having killed the former second in command. Future problems that Firepot has to directly deal with and solve. A lot of these characters who do terrible things eventually get awarded or are ignored, not solved, which is a real shame. And I'll talk about those characters when they become relevant again in the future. Also, it's pretty funny after killing the former second in command, Ironclaw still had to luck his way into becoming deputy as he had to wait for Lionheart to die. He just had to kind of hope that Lionheart got into a fight and then died from his wounds. Overall, however, this is a fine book. I'd read through it all quickly enough. I mean, it's a children's book. It should be easy enough for me to read, I hope. Fun dialogue and some fun characters and a nice adventure was a clear path in which this story will develop into. First of a series that spawned out several more series, the first six books are easily the best out of the bunch. Granted, I haven't read all the series, but at least the series that I did read featuring the Warrior Cats, it seemed universally agreed upon that the first six books are the best six books. Follows a clear story with consistent enough writing, though again, it clearly has its flaws here and there, with how some plot points and characters are written, but we'll get to it when we do. It's got a good classic protagonist that tackles the challenges in each book well, and simply put, it's fun to read. Lots of dead cats, but still a perfectly fun and happy experience for a juvenile to read as long as they like cats. Or I guess with all the cat deaths, they can hate cats too, and they'll probably enjoy it either way. All right, by the way, this part of the script is after I read the comic book, and my personal opinions are, I think the art style is acceptable, nice and cartoony to exaggerate emotions, which is good. Backgrounds and foreground artwork is all nice, but it's mainly the cat designs that leave a bit to be desired. Like Fireheart or Firepaw is described throughout the books as bright orange cat, hence why he looks like he's on fire. The comic book draws him with a lot of black. Aside from that, Blue Star and many other cats look a bit off to me. I mean, Yellow Fang is literally drawn like a barrel. If you really don't like reading, even at like a third grade's level, but still, like in most cases, book is better. Though the book does make a few minor changes, like Firepaw's sister being introduced, and she only exists later on when the authors actually come up with the idea of Firepaw having a sister, and takes much a spot in Firepaw's choice of ever returning back to his owners or staying in the wild. A lot of of the minute details and some plot points are glossed over. There are some fun action pages, and the best parts are easily the more comedic, goofier panels. Overall, though, it seemed quite rushed as they had to cram two books into a single graphic novel, and a lot of the smaller things are omitted. You'd hope to be some more character development between characters with the ability of hindsight, but sadly no. Characters get even less development in these books. Again, read the book if you can, you'll miss out on a lot of important details if you don't. Anyways, back to the actual book. I think is a good series of adventure books, and I look forward to going through my childhood memories as I read the next book and review it. Go ahead and try and read it if you want, or you can just sit here and continue on and listening to me weirdly criticize a children's book that's over 22 years old now. Yeah, I don't know how my life led up to this either. Man, am I sad. But if you found me talking about cats going to war in a forest in the UK interesting for some reason, you can leave a comment, subscribe, you can check out some of my other nonsense I created, might pique your interest. And until then, this is Captain Bill signing out. See ya.